Hi everyone, this is Sean Ismail from the Cloud Ranger, and you are viewing the Microsoft Azure training. Today is the part 10 of Azure Virtual Machines, and this happens to be the last session on virtual machines in Azure. And we're going to touch the Azure VM monitoring. This is going to be a very short session because there's not a whole lot that's going on in the default virtual machine monitoring in Azure. So like I mentioned, there are built-in VM monitoring capabilities in Azure, and in production, chances are you might not be using some of this or all of this, depending on how your organization is laid out right now. If you're using something more robust like System Center Virtual Machine System Center Operations Manager, or any other suite for monitoring, then you probably will not be using them because these are very rudimentary in terms of the robust monitoring systems out there. But nevertheless, they are there and they do help you in getting basic metrics and alerts for your virtual machines. It can do a bunch of stuff, and I'm thinking that Azure might end up, providing more capabilities to monitor your VMs in the future because some of these features are in preview right now. And the way things are going on right now in 2015, when I'm making these videos actually, is that Microsoft is going towards that online monitoring thing for Operations Manager, and who knows, maybe they'll integrate that. Anyways, we have 3 points here that we need to discuss because they're the default monitoring capabilities in Azure right now. And, just because they're there right now, this also will be part of your exams, okay? So the three we have to discuss today is the VM metrics and alerts. And we are going to talk about VM endpoint monitoring, which is actually, when they say VM endpoint monitoring, it's really for the web. HTTP. And then we have VM Diagnostics. It's a virtual machine agent extension that we'll be talking about. So let's talk about VM metrics and alerts. So what you can do is that in Azure portal, you'll be able to configure and collect metrics for example, CPU, memory, disk, and some others. And what you can do with this metrics is not only you can view on the portal on the dashboard that how your virtual machine right now is, it's performing. You can also set alerts. And what you do is that when you configure this metrics, you can actually have thresholds that you can mention for these alerts. And what will happen is if it crosses these thresholds, the alerts can actually send you an email. And that's pretty handy. So for example, if you can say that, hey, if this virtual machine CPU is like about 80% for last 5 minutes, I want to be notified. So you can get something like that. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot over here. I'm going to just directly jump onto our client machine, and I'm going to show you how to do this. So this is my portal, Azure portal. I just have a virtual machine created. It's a basic virtual machine, nothing fancy on this. Um, if you are following along, you can create this as well. It's just a basic virtual machine. You can see that there are some stuff that virtual machine has been monitoring under the dashboard tab over here. And the metrics by default they are monitoring are, so for example, if you go to the monitor tab, you should be able to see that these are basically the metrics. It is kind of monitoring right now. There's 5 of them: disk read write, network out, CPU percentage, network in. So what you can do is if you click on this, as you can see that, some other options show up over here. So you can add metrics to this, delete metric, or you can add rules. So the rules are the ones where the alerts are configured. So as you can see, the color over here for the CPU is sort of amberish. So what you can see is that, it's been a pretty flat line because it's a new virtual machine. I've not really done a whole lot on this. So the CPU is pretty much not going anywhere, but it's a pretty interactive graph over here that you can see. So if we go to add a rule, I'm going to just add a rule that, call it CPU spike or whatever. Give it a description, CPU spike. And let's go next. So this alert is basically saying that what are the conditions for notifications? So, why will you be notified? So if I say if it goes more than 85%, you can see the unit is in percentage, average over the last 5 minutes. If this is the case, then I wanted to send an email. So for example, you say Sean at cloudranger.net. So basically that's the enable, and I'll enable the rule here. That's the email, and I'll enable the rule here. So you have multiple options over here that how often do you need this to be, what is the sampling period? That's what in statistics is called. It's the sampling period. So what it's doing is that it's going to check if for the last 5 minutes, if the threshold or the CPU has been more than 85%, means something is up. Like if your virtual machine has 85% of CPU for less than five, which lasts 5 minutes, means that it's struggling for whatever reason, because that might not be normal. But then again, depending on your environment, you might think that, okay, 5 minutes, I have a process that takes about 85% of CPU, and it will probably run for 10 minutes, and I'm okay with that. Then you'll do something like this. Okay, so that depends on your organizations. And I'm saying greater than, less than, or equal to, so you do have options for changing these conditions. End of the day, if these conditions match, it's going to send you an email to the email address you provide, and you enable the rule. Okay, that took a few seconds for it to create. Now, if you go to the CPU percentage over here, you can see one rules configured. So it's basically saying that for this metric here, there is a rule on it. So you can actually click on that. Let's click on that. And alert status is not activated because we did not have an alert. You can actually go to the rule here, and it will give you a history of how many times this alert has been, and the details on the alert over here as well. We can see it's a CPU percentage. The threshold is 85%, 5 minutes. In the last 5 minutes, if it has been for 85 or not, and it will basically just go and pretty much alert you if it has been running for that certain amount of time. So it's a very basic rule. As you can see, there's not a whole lot going on in here, and that's how you basically the look at the metrics as over here and basically configure a rule. And you can do that rules on the other metrics, the metrics over here too, for networking, network out, disk, CPU, and stuff like that. Okay. And you could delete one of those metrics from here. By the way, I went and recreated this virtual machine because so that's why it's currently not showing any more of those, that graph where the thing was running or not. The reason behind that was that the last time I was trying to configure one of the rules, something happened with the virtual machine. And this is one of the reasons I don't like this portal, because some of the things are a little clunky, and um, you know, it's not does not send end result as expected. But these are very rudimentary. I'm pretty sure if you guys have worked with SCOM or any other alert systems, you'll find out that this is very, very basic. And it probably works with smaller organizations. If you have a large organization, you probably want to be alerted on various other things as well. So that's pretty much it when it comes to, configuring this metrics for monitoring and adding the rule for sending alerts and configuring the thresholds. Okay, so let's go back to our slide. So the next monitoring we are going to talk about is the endpoint monitoring. And, Microsoft calls it endpoint monitoring, but you'll notice that the only endpoint it can monitor is actually for the web, HTTP or HTTPS, and no other endpoints really. It's a preview feature, so it's not feature complete. They might add additional stuff on there right now. But for now, what you can do is you can monitor up to 2 web endpoints, and it could be 2 sites, 2 web applications, or whatever, but just 2 of them from 3 locations. And what that means is that if you are in East US 2, and that's where your virtual machine and your web server is, you can have 3 separate locations, means you can have 3 other regions, like from West US, for example, one from probably Hong Kong, another one. So basically just 3 different locations you can have from where it can test your web endpoint from those locations and see if they're up and running on the web is up and running or not. So that's what it means from 3 locations. And we saw some metrics there that were created when I mean that are already there with a virtual machine. For example, we just worked with the CPU. But when you enable this, there are two other metrics that will be created. One is uptime and another one is response. So let's go to our virtual machine and actually create one of these endpoint monitoring things. So this is the same virtual machine. There are a couple of things I just changed over here. So if you go to the endpoints here, you'll see that I have enabled the endpoint HTTP. By doing so, I'm allowing the port 80 traffic to be, to be exposed so I can go to the website. And on the virtual machine itself, what I have done is I have actually gone and enabled the IIS role. So the Internet Information Services, it's right here. And I did not do anything. It's right out of the box. I do not have any website or anything created. I just pretty much enabled the role, and that's about it. And as you can see, I have not even come here before. It's just a default site running on port 80. And if I go to rangervm.cloudapp.net, as you can see, it's showing the IIS default page. Okay, that's all we need for our purpose here. So what we are basically trying to do is going to monitor this, pretty much this default page. So the way you do that is you go to the virtual machine. As you can see that there is something on the dashboard here that says configure web endpoint monitoring. So we are going to go over there. And once we are over here, you'll see that this is the endpoints. It says it's for a preview. So I'm going to call it like HTTP, whatever, and see by default when I did HTTP, it knew that I have something over here and it went and picked up on that URL. And you can name it anything, HTTP monitors or HTTP mon or whatever. And that's different locations. So you can select up to 3 locations from where you want this to be monitored. So for me, I can say that, okay, let's see, I want it to be monitored from California. I'll just leave one here and I will do one from Hong Kong and maybe one from, I don't know, from Paris. So you can have up to 3 locations here, and then you can put, like I said, there are 2 of these endpoints, so you can do another one, probably HTTP personal or whatever. And what you can do is I could probably go for test.html. So you can do something like that. So this will go to the default page. It will go to the test. Chances are this is going to fail because I do know that I do not have something called test.html. And this one I'll just do from Chicago and I will just leave one test location and just leave it that way. So these are the 2 that are created. You see that there is no way to provision more endpoints. It's a preview feature. So for now, that's just it. So let's save this and get back to it. Okay, now that's done. So this one has 3 locations and this one you can see has 1 location. If you go back, you need to give this sufficient amount of time to actually go and do the polling. So let's wait over here. Web endpoint monitoring data is not available. So I'm going to just pause and come back to this in a bit to just show you how it shows up here. You notice already that rather than giving you the provision to actually configure it, it's just now saying that data is not available. So that means that it is actually going to it is polling data and eventually it's going to show up here. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, I gave this about like 2 minutes of a pause, and you can see what it is saying that right now the web input status, it's like last checked at the time. And as you can see that the first one we created, HTTP mod, it is showing that, it's showing the location and the response time, and you can see that it went and did a check from Hong Kong and found out how long it takes for it to, do that. So the other information is not available, but you can see that from Hong Kong, people are able to access this. I'm pretty sure they're able to access it from anywhere as well. It's just that the polling is not fully complete. However, the rule, the HTTP personal, you can see over here that, uh, it it pretty much did not get anything. And from US, Illinois, Chicago, it's not going to pick it up because I know that test.html does not exist. I mean, I just enabled the IIS role and I did not put any, HTTP files or HTML files in there. So I know that was going to fail. So that data is not there. So once again, it's a very primitive and very, I don't know, simplistic way of checking web endpoints. And this is exactly how we do it. And that's all that is there to it, really. It's very simple. There's not a whole lot that you can do from here. So That's just it. Okay, so let's go back to our slides and discuss the last topic for today. And this is quite interesting, actually. We are going to talk about the VM diagnostics, and what it is that it's an virtual machine agent extension. So if you remember the extensions we had talked about, this is actually an extension that you can enable for the agent. And you cannot, unfortunately, configure this from the management portal. You'll have to use the new preview portal and PowerShell. Those are the only two ways you can do that. From PowerShell, the commandlet is set as your VM Diagnostics extension. If you remember how to enable extensions, this is actually a built-in commandlet for this extension that you can run to configure that. I'm not going to go into too much details about this. Feel free to look at this on MSDN for how to do this on PowerShell. But I'll show you how to do this from the preview portal. Now, I just said that this is only available from preview portal. And speaking of this, I need to elaborate a little bit. So when I started this series, like, I don't know, a couple of months ago, I did mention that we were doing a lot of stuff from the management portal. There were two sides to why I mentioned that. One was that management portal it is most feature complete. I'm not saying that it's all feature complete. It's most feature complete. You can do most of the stuff from the management portal. I used to it day to day, still till today. And the second reason I mentioned that was because at that time, Preview Portal was kind of new to me, and Management Portal was everything that I really understood and I knew how to work with. Having said that, Microsoft did mention that eventually Preview Portal is the only portal that is going to become the Azure portal. Management Portal eventually will go away. With Preview Portal, it's preview in nature, so there are things that sometimes do not work for me, or I have to keep coming back to the management portal to do. Uh, that's why most of the stuff that I want to do, I can do from management portal. So I only go to preview portal when they have some feature that's only available from that portal and not on the management portal. Okay, so but this is probably the good time for everyone to start working on the preview portal because it's becoming more and more feature complete lately, and Microsoft has been very aggressive on getting that up to date. And Preview Portal actually has already some extra features, not only for the preview stuff, but I'm noticing that, for example, from the management portal, if you create a virtual machine, you cannot give it a static IP address of the virtual machine without the PowerShell, and that's how Microsoft Exam is putting it right now as well. We only can go and put static IPs from PowerShell. But if you go to the preview portal, you will see there is a way to provision a static IP right from the UI. And this is because of the multiple feedbacks that Microsoft has gotten over the last few months, where we have been screaming that, hey, for setting up a static IP, for example, we should not have to go and write PowerShell script to do that because these are very simple out of the box stuff that is very common to all organizations. And why are certain things so hard to do and only available from PowerShell when they should be done from UI right away? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm quite strong in PowerShell and most of you might be as well, and we have no issues in doing this. But then again, I want to save time. I do not want to go spin up another environment, write up a script, and figure all those out to set a static IP. And this, I'm just saying for static IP as an example, but there are other features that can be done as well. And Microsoft is slowly trying to integrate things in the preview portal directly from the get-go. So please go ahead and start using Preview Portal. I'm still going to jump between this portal management and Preview Portal and PowerShell to do whatever I need to do. But Preview Portal is somewhere where you need to be at this point, okay? So for coming back to our topic here, VM Diagnostic, this is only enabled from Preview Portal and PowerShell. So if we go back to our client and if you look over here, you can't just do it from here, okay? And the other thing I want to show you over here is that, look, there's reset password, then there's reset remote configuration, all this stuff, they're all there in the preview portal. I mean, Microsoft is giving you that option and kind of giving you a heads up, hey, there are ways to do this right now from UI, and you can do this from the preview portal. So if you recall properly, that the way you go to preview portal is switch to Azure preview portal, and let's come over here. The preview portal is quite slick. I mean, when it will be done, it will be pretty interesting to see this. Okay, so my portal looks like this. So what I'm going to do is browse to the virtual machine that we have right now. And the way we do that is from here, go to browse and go to virtual machines. So I only have one virtual machine running right now, Ranger VM, that's going to be listed. So when you click on this, there'll be another plate that will open up here, and it's gathering all the information. Let's go and maximize this for our purposes. You can see that the monitoring, just like the dashboard was there in the management portal, there is some, monitoring stuff that's coming up over there. I spent about a couple of bucks on this virtual machine. That's what it's showing right now. I'm in the compute domain. Um, it's giving you a bunch of stuff that you can do for the monitoring. You can see already from here. So what do we need to do? We need to go and we need to enable the diagnostics. So you go to all settings here, you go to diagnostics, and you can see the status is turned to off. So all we need to do is turn it on right now. And you can see that the minute you turn this on, what is happening is that it is giving you a bunch of other metrics that were not there right away. And look, I have enabled the IAS, so the IAS logs showed up over here. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So one thing you have to notice over here, that why did the storage account showed up here? So the thing I want to talk about is that diagnostics is basically it's going to collect all these logs and it's going to store it somewhere. And the way it stores it is that it collects all these logs and put it in a storage account that you specify. So technically, this VM diagnostics is nothing, but it allows you to collect logs and store into Azure storage account. Basically, you're just collecting logs and you're taking those logs, it's doing some sort of analysis and it's putting it on the site over here. Okay. So now that we have enabled this stuff over here, I'm going to just go ahead and click on save. And that should technically save it and enable the diagnostics here. So let's close all of this over here. Oops. Okay, looks like it's successful right now. I had to give it some time. So let's close this, back here. Okay. Now I want to show what changed here. So look at this monitoring here. I don't know if you looked carefully. Uh, yeah. So look at this. It started bringing in certain other Windows logs and stuff like that because you remember that it added more metrics to this, right? So it went and got the operations. So the events and everything showed up. So let's go to the events here. As you can see, there's event counts, error, number of critical errors. So it's basically starting to get more information about your virtual machine. And this is quite slick actually because it's storing this in a storage account and you can actually see the information that's coming out of this. So as time passes by, you'll see more information. Now, the other thing I want to show you over here is that let's go to the management portal and refresh this screen here and reload this. Once this is reloaded, let's go to the storage account here. So this is the random storage account that was created for me. As you can see in the containers, there's just one container that's for our VHDs. But if you let enough time pass by, you will see that there will be other containers. For example, one for IIS for sure will show up here. And if you go in that container, you will start seeing the data that has been collected from this diagnostics. Okay, so all the data that diagnostics extension actually carries actually end up being stored in the storage account here. These are raw data that is being stored here. And like I mentioned before, that this is actually an agent. So do you guys remember how to go and find out extension information on a virtual machine from PowerShell? Well, this was pretty much the commandlet that we had. Get Azure VM service name. My service name is Ranger VM, and the name of the virtual machine is Ranger VM. The commandlet was get Azure VM extension. So it will actually show you all the extensions that were installed, that are installed on this virtual machine. Sorry to scroll down really fast, but if you come over here right now, the BG info, right? So this is one extension that's always there on our desktop, this little information. We know that this is an extension. And the other extension that actually got installed is IaaS, Infrastructure as a Service, Diagnostics. So the Diagnostics is like basically it's an extension and it went and it's enabled as you can see for this role. So you can verify that it's actually installed properly once you enable that from that end. So a lot of things happen in the back end for the diagnostics to actually be enabled. Okay, so there's not a whole lot to this besides that, and like I mentioned, that it's diagnostics is pretty much a step up from obviously the other stuff that we have looked right out of the box. But still, for a robust, all around, much more capable. Um, much more capable monitoring, you probably will need something for insights, like Azure is coming up with their own things. So those are the stuff you will probably need to do this in production. Nevertheless, this gives you some sort of a rudimentary way to get started with at least monitoring something for your organization. Anyway, so that's really that is there to it for the VM diagnostics, and that pretty much concludes our session. Let's go back to the slides. So I just want to mention that we did not spend too much time on this. I really wanted to uh, get done with the Azure VMs for now. I mean, there are more stuff that are being added every day on Azure. It might be very hard to keep up if you do not know the basics. So get started with these basics first and start adding to those. And definitely keep an eye on the exams for looking at if there are any new features or anything being added. The way the exam is designed is to not test you on, for example, the preview stuff or the stuff that has just been out. It goes with the basics. The basics are still going to be same. You're just going to change on how you're going to do this. Things are probably just going to be easier to do, and things will become a little bit more robust than we have learned. But at the end of the day, the basics are going to still be the same, right? So do not fear. Keep an eye on the exam curriculum to just see that the objectives are made. And I'm looking at those curriculums. I'm going through the official curriculum actually, and making sure that all the objectives are touched on. And that's why I went and did this monitoring session. And I'm keeping it nice and short because that's all there is to it. And we do not use this in production, to be honest. But you can feel free to do this and play it out. Give it some time so you can actually uh, look into all the data that it will collect. Anyways, that's it for today. I will be seeing you in the next session, and it's not going to be virtual machine. We are done for this right now. So the training site is as usual at www.cloudranger.net/Azure-training. On YouTube, you are at Cloud Ranger Network. Twitter is at Cloud Ranger Blog, and you can always email me, Sean at cloudranger.net. All right, guys, thank you for viewing this session, and I will be seeing you in the next one.